is of the essence, as people say. Time is very important. We all live with clocks. Before there was sundials, there was always ways of measuring time because people are creatures of time. So now in our homes we have watches, we have electronic gadgets that tell us the time. In the kitchen, your cooker measures the time. There are clocks of all kinds. And why is time important? Because we are born at a certain time and we are aging even from the first day of our lives, and then eventually we decay and die. And there is a peremption time for each human being. And you notice that between 50 and 120 people end up dying somewhere along the line. And if you look at the Bible, you see that God created or measured time. He said He separated light and darkness, light for the day and light for the night, and then darkness. And they started coming in alternance. And He called one day and one night. And there was a night and there was a day, the first day, and then creation continued. And throughout the Bible and throughout every history, there is mention of time. Whether we call it with this or that, use different ways of measuring it. As of now, we know that each day has 24 hours, including some of that being night. And night, the length of night depends on the way we are on the earth, how close we are from the equator. But what is interesting is that in God there is timelessness, linked with the fact that God is spirit. And God lives in eternity, as the Bible describes it. And everybody believes that there is something that is called eternity. And it can be defined as timelessness, absence of time. So it's like an eternal today, an experience that is outside time. And it's interesting to see that Moses made that experience. God called him in Mount Sinai to tell him about his laws that he wanted to give his people. And Moses entered, he climbed the mountain to a point and waited for 6 days, we are told. And after that, God came to pick him as it is. And he climbed higher, and we are told that he stayed with God 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate nor drank. And how it was recorded is because people down the mountain knew that it was 40 days and 40 nights. But for him, it was like a long meeting with God. And the chapters that describe that discussion with God, that instruction that God was giving him, never mentioned that there was a day and there was a night. It continued on and on until God told him, let's stop meeting. You have to go down. Something happened there. You need to see what's going on with your people. And the time he was with God, in that timelessness, as he experienced it, while others were measuring it, he was under the cloud, under God's presence. And we know that other places in the New Testament and in the Old Testament mention other experiences, people being able to run faster than a chariot, Philip in the New Testament being taken away from the place the pool he was with the eunuch and found himself somewhere else without being able to say what happened. But today, it is relevant to us. Timelessness is in the presence of God. And if you want to experience timelessness, you need to come into God's presence with no agenda and no clock, saying, I'm going to stay with you until you release me. You can worship Him, you can stay silent. Whatever happens in that time, in that timelessness, doesn't really matter. What matters is we are invited, we are all invited to come into God's very presence. And we are all invited. It can happen this afternoon, tonight, anytime. When you know that you can afford that timelessness, that you are not expected to come down because of attending to the family or working, you can give time to God. Say, okay, I can be available tonight, for example. And then you come into God's presence with no agenda. Just come. And by God's grace, by God's love, we can experience, just for a short time, that timelessness. And in that timelessness, we are transformed. Just like Moses, in his meetings with God, was transformed. When he came out of the tent of meeting, his face shone with God's glory. Let it be our experience.